Welcome to the Resellers podcast with tech and sports and daily refinement. We've helped thousands of people save time and make more money by improving their online stores. Check out patreon.com/the Resellers podcast for thousands of hours of full-length ad-free podcasts and coaching calls. Join our Facebook group with thousands of sellers making the transition from hobby to business. See you in the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Resellers podcast with tech and sports and daily refinement. Today, we have a very special 5-way podcast. So we're going to release the full version on YouTube for everybody to listen to, plug everybody's YouTube channel. And then also for Patreon members, you guys get the video version. You can watch it with all of our lovely faces inside the Patreon group. So I'm going to introduce everybody around the horn. We'll start with James, Bold Finds. James, tell us where people can find you and what you sell.
Yeah, so I'm James Bold Finds. You can find me on Instagram under Bold Finds. My eBay store's Bold Finds, and my YouTube channel's Bold Finds. At the moment, I am a everything seller, but I have made a decision a few months ago to niche down into clothing after spending some quality time in this group and realizing that that's the way I'm going to need to go to grow my business. So I'm in a really weird stage at the moment where I'm growing a clothing store while liquidating my everything store at the same time. So when I'm doing my markdown and coupons, I'm doing that on the everything side and not so much the clothing side as well. But the goal is come January the 1st, I'm going to be a clothing seller.
So this is a great segue to our topic for the day, which is moving to what works. What works for one reseller may not work for another reseller. I'm going to introduce Philly Flipper. Thank you so much for taking some time to hang out with us today. Tell us a little bit about you and where you are.
So my name is Paul. Go by the Philly Flipper. I see him as James, Philly Flipper, everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, eBay. My name used to be Accurate. It's not accurate anymore because I moved to Florida, but I still got Philly in the blood. So that's why the name is sticking. And what works for me is, like I said, being an everything seller. My content is mainly garage sale videos where I go to source. So whatever I find garage sales, I come back, I list it on eBay and I sell it.
Can't wait to talk about what works for you might be what you find. And now we're going to introduce Mel back from Burnout. Mel, tell us about you, and you might be visiting another member on this call today.
That's right. I'm currently staying with Philly Flipper here in America. So my first Australian trip to USA, and very, very excited. I've already been and seen tech, and I'm on my way to see you afterwards as well, Chris. But my name's Mel. If you don't know me, my channel name is Back from Burnout. Same thing. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all the different social media platforms under the name Back from Burnout. I am a niche down seller selling books, primarily like all books. And yeah, my YouTube channel is kind of like the story of my books, but also just kind of vlogging my life.
So Tech, do you want to kick us off with the topic? I wasn't sure if we were going to reveal that Mel actually visited your shop, because that's like top secret. Not very many people have had the privilege to actually go to your shop.
Yeah, she came. We had a great time with Mel, my wife and I. I know Tom already asked Mel the 20 questions if it was all real. And Mel, I believe, was happy to report that it was all real. So that's good. I passed all the tests. But I think let's start with what we talked about last week, where Mel had the revelation that when she was sourcing for Tom, she picked up better quality items than she would source for herself. So I would be interested in getting Mel's point of view on that, because that was kind of the topic for last week. And I think it was a very good discussion that we had.
Mel, do you want to start us off with that conclusion that you had?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was a real eye-opener for me. You know, I was coming to America. I was trying not to spend my money. I'd rather spend my money here for the month rather than just having a pile of added inventory. I've already got a huge unlisted inventory pile, so I knew I didn't need any more. And yeah, we had a big book fair. I would normally buy lots of books at the book fair for myself, but because I was trying not to spend my money, I offered to pick for Tom. And, you know, it was just eye-opening for me, because I just realized once I was spending somebody else's money, how much more cautious I was about what I was buying. And I didn't want to buy any rubbish books that I thought when he gets back to the computer and he has to list, that he might sit there and go, why did she pick this up? It's barely even worth any money. So I guess there's a moral in it. There's a lot of low-end books that I will pick up because I'll know that they will sell and they'll have a reasonable sell-through rate, and I know that they're books that I've sold before. But at the end of the day, they do bring a low profit. But while sourcing for someone else, even though I know that they are books that sell, I was still conscious of the low profit that was going to come from those books. And so I was really making an effort to make sure I was picking those higher profit books. And after I did it, I came away and I thought to myself, if I was going home now, I would be excited to list that trolley full of books. I would have been really excited knowing that all of those books were worth a lot of money and they were all going into my store. And as it was, I had to listen to Tom, who was sending me text messages as he was listing them, going, wow, this book's really good. And this book I've listed for like $80, $100, $120. And then 24 hours later, having him message me and going, that book sold. That book that you bought that I listed for $80 is already sold. So it really opened my eyes up and made me think about what I'm buying and the grind that I'm putting myself through as well, listing a lot of these low-end books, which is impacting my entire business. It's impacting the way that, like, I feel like at the moment I'm not doing a great job at anything because I'm trying to do so much on everything, and I feel like I'm not doing a good job at anything. So yeah.
And then when Mel was here, we spent a little bit of time talking about that, and we had a conversation. And Tom, on the media call, he said you have a fire lit under you after the conversation. But I know we had the conversation, but I never asked, like, what were your thoughts or what did you think about that? But so like you said, you are kind of buried by a lot of things and not able to do, one or two things very well. So I guess after our conversation, how did you feel, or what was the takeaway from it?
After the conversation, I think the thing is I came into that conversation really quite vulnerable, and I put myself out there to you, telling you that I wasn't doing a great job. And by doing that, by actually being vulnerable like that, you were able to give me a proper answer, and you were able to sit down and work out a plan with me. It's one of those things where you know what you're meant to be doing, but you're almost crippled by how do you start. Like it's almost like some kind of paralysis. You know what you're supposed to be doing, but like you're so knee deep in all the problems. Where do you even start to get out of them? So you just really broke it down into a simplified way for me on do this first, sort this part first of your business, then you can do this, then you can do this. And then the big part, I think the biggest thing that you said to me was you called it a virus. And you basically said that there was a virus going through my business and the virus was spreading. And if I didn't get on top of that virus, then it was just going to, overtake and consume me. And when I really thought about it like that, it just made me think. And Tom's right, it has lit a fire in my belly, and it's given me a plan of action now, exactly what I need to do when I come back home, where I'm going to start, and how to get my business back on track.
Excellent.
So I have a question for you, Mel. What different decisions did you make buying for Tom than for yourself? Because I was just thinking right now, for everyone in this group that's listening right now, I would buy different things for you, right? And it probably would make sense to me to ask specifically, what kind of books are you looking for? What are you set up to list? What works the best for you? Were you thinking about what would work the best with his? Have you seen his setup or his store before?
Yeah. So I've seen his store, and he's got a lot of books in his store as well. I think the thing is, I still looked at the books that I feel like I'm an expert at. I just cut out all the low range stuff in it, and I only started sourcing the higher end items in those niches. So it's still very. I still had a lot of that knowledge just from self-knowledge, but I was looking, I don't know, normally I would have bought those books for myself, but I would have bought a whole lot of other low-end stuff with it that just would have been time-consuming to photograph and list and store, and maybe some of it would have just sat there and these low profits. It's just probably not worth it. I'm better off to go out there and do more sourcing at different places, trying to just keep constantly find these higher end items rather than buying so many low end items at the same time, which then stops me from being productive going out there to source the better items.
I didn't know that you could leave the low end items there until recently. I thought for some reason you have to buy all of them, and then Tech gave me permission to leave those there. They're for somebody, just not me. And I thought, okay, as long as they're safe with somebody else, then I can leave it there. For some reason, I was like, adopting all these items into my store for no reason.
Yeah.
So,
Tech said the same to me. You don't have to buy every book, Mel. You don't have to buy every book. You just buy, the books that are right for your store and that hit your metrics.
absolutely. So for Paul, you do a lot of garage sale type videos, and you could consume and overwhelm yourself with everything at the garage sale too. So I guess kind of like the theme of what we're talking about is moving to what works. So as someone who is an everything seller and does go to garage sales and have a tremendous amount of opportunities to buy, kind of how do you go through that without kind of overbuying? And overbuying is the easiest way to cripple the business.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because especially with garage sales, you spend a lot of time, spend a lot of gas going to there. So you kind of don't want to go to a garage sale and leave empty handed, because you feel like you wasted your time. You feel like you wasted your gas. Like, oh, I have to buy something. And then usually that's something I buy. It just gets put in a dev file just because I feel like I had to buy it, but actually never gets listed. But just for you to to do it. So I usually have like a little like price guide in mind. I need to make at least this amount of money on this item for me to buy it. Or now, because I used to have a warehouse in Philadelphia that had 4,000 square feet. Now I'm running things from my house, which my house is only 1,500 square feet. So way less space. So now I'm focusing a lot more on the sell-through rate than I used to do in back in Philly, because I didn't really care about sell-through rate in Philly, because it's going to be in my warehouse. It's going to sell wherever it's going to sell. I don't care. The space is there. I have much little bit of space now. So I'm like, okay, if this thing doesn't sell in 90 days, it might be an issue. So like I'm looking a lot more at sell-through rate now, especially on the bigger items. If I'm buying like golf bags or golf clubs or big things that will take up a lot of space, I want those things to be out of here as soon as possible. So even if I can spend something like $5 or something that will sell for 100, but it might take 2 years for it to sell, I pass on it now. Well, back in Philly, I would pick it up all the time, because like I don't care if it's here, but here it's taking up space that I could put 10, 20 items in that could sell a lot faster. So it's like you said, moving to what works. It's so much different based on where people are, where they are in their life, where they are in their reselling journey, if they're full-time, if they're part-time, if they're working from their house or working from a warehouse. It's so different for everybody. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves is when you see somebody on YouTube say, you have to do this to be successful. And I think resellers we all have different paths to what our success is. So I like this topic a lot.
Absolutely. And like you said on the YouTube call right before this, one of the main pillars of success was consistency. And that goes across every avenue, whether it's YouTube, reselling, your spouse, everything. If you're consistent, that's half the battle.
For sure.
So I have a question. And this is like a YouTube / reselling question. If you post in the title, this sold fast versus this sold for huge amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Are people more interested in what sells fast, or do they care more about that $500 item that might sell in the future?
I think the resellers that watch will click more on this sells fast.
I see.
The broader audience that watches just to see my adventures will click for this sold for a lot of money.
Interesting.
Because they'll be more interested, because a lot of people that watch my main channel aren't resellers. They just watch to see what I find. So for them, the big price tag payoff is more important. For the resellers that want to actually look forward to flip, I think the fast for them would be a bigger trigger word.
And you mentioned before we start that now that you're in Florida instead of Philly, you're less scared because there's more garage sales more year round potentially. So
correct. Because
of that, is it easier to say no now because you can just go to the next garage sale? Or maybe in Philly, you can't do that. There's only a few. Yeah,
it's definitely easier to say no because I know I can do it all year round. In Philly, like I said, from about before Thanksgiving, like a couple weeks before Thanksgiving till all the way till April, we had nothing. So that was a long period of having nothing. Now I did have auction houses I can go to but get inventory. So if I needed inventory, I could do it. But if I needed content, I couldn't do it. So for me, there's weekends where I don't go sourcing because I have so much stuff. And I'm like, it's okay. I don't have to go sourcing. I have a ton to list. I have enough footage to make videos. I don't have to do it. So it's a lot easier for me now here in Florida to pass on things, to pass on sales than it was back in Philadelphia.
Since you started passing, has your business gotten better? Has your life gotten better? I'm not sure. That's a real question.
So my average sale price in Philadelphia was about $21. My ASP here is a little over 46 now. So it feels really good to be doing about half less to work, but still make the same amount of money. And like I said, like in Philadelphia, I always bought everything, and then I'm like, oh, I paid $1, it only sells for 10, but I already bought it, might as well list it, even though just not much profit on there. And then I'll probably take it offer for 5. So I don't know what I would even make on that item. Here, I'm taking a lot better items because I always say the stuff here is also better. I live in a wealthy part. I don't know, like, it's like Sarasota County has a lot of wealthy people live for. Not me, but other people in Sarasota are wealthy. So like you go through yard sales, garage sales, you find a lot better items that would find back in Philadelphia anyways. So it's good when it's a high ASP and a high sell-through rate when they come together. It feels really nice.
Did you narrow down categories at all? Or do you feel like when you're at a garage sale, you're looking for any category as long as it sells fast?
No, I don't think I narrowed down much. Maybe buy less of something, but I don't think I turn anything down. So like I'm the opposite of James. I do not like listing close. It's a painful experience for me. I did not enjoy it. I don't like the measurements and then answer all the questions about measurements. So I try to buy as little clothes as possible, or it has to be something really good that I'm going to pick up. Back in Philly, I would buy all the clothes I could get because I knew it was easy stuff to source. It was easy stuff to put on the store, and it's going to sell eventually. So that's probably the thing I limit the most. And also, I think it's based on where you are, what you source. Like I barely bought anything golf related in Philadelphia because there was nothing golf related. Here, everybody plays golf all the time, so I pick up a lot more bags, a lot more clubs, a lot more stuff that has to deal with that, just based on where I live. So I think that's a big part of it too.
So as an everything seller, the metrics, so you're talking about sell through. And then also I looked on your Instagram, you have a lot of home runs that you show. So How do you balance sell through and home run?
That's a good question. Like I said, if it's an item that's small and easy to compact and it's going to be a home run, I will buy it. Now, if it's something that's huge, like I say, if it's like a blow mold or something that's super big, super bulky, hard to ship, hard to pack, and the home run is there, but it will take 2-3 years to sell, I'm not gonna do it because it's just a storage space. Like the one thing I sold for $400 was a remote. It was this big, and they wanted $1 for it. So I don't care if that thing took 4 or 5 years to sell. It's a little remote. I can store it and forget about it. But like if it was like something big and bulky, like a vacuum or something that was super hard to pack, I would probably leave it behind. Yeah.
Gotcha. So for James, since you are talking about niching down to clothing, it's kind of the opposite aspect of Paul. So what were your thoughts that kind of pushed you in that direction?
Yeah, so for me, reselling, when I first started reselling, it always was that adventure. It was going to the car boot sales and actually going into that field and the excitement of not knowing what you are going to find. So it's been great being in this group because you hear lots of things mentioned about how an everything seller is kind of an expert in nothing. And before I came into the group, I used to think an everything seller is an expert in everything in that sense. And I've sold, you name it, I've sold it, is the way I look at it. I've sold the big VCR players, I've sold the bread makers, I've sold the small items, I've sold everything. Funnily enough, the only thing I never used to pick up as an everything seller was clothing, which is what I'm niching into. And I think a big part of that has been influenced by being in this group and surrounding myself with some really good clothing sellers from the UK. And I used to speak to them on a daily basis, and I still do, and kind of feel like they are putting in, for me, I feel less effort into their business, but making 2, 3, 4 times what I'm making in my business. And I kind of had to hit that point and reflect and kind of say, how many years am I going to spend working this hard for little reward? And it was a conversation with someone in the group that finally made me come to the point of saying, if I want to make this into a serious business, I need to pick a category to niche into. And clothing, for me, I've never been overly passionate about clothing. I've never been the most fashionable person when it comes to clothing. And so for me, I'm not going to get that attachment like I do with some of the everything stuff as well. So when it comes to accepting offers, when it comes to listing things up at the right price to get them to sell, I feel the attachment is not there for me. But the biggest struggle I'm going to find is now becoming an expert in the craft. So beforehand, where I thought I knew lots of little things where I didn't, it's now becoming an expert in clothing. And I think for me, front loading my knowledge is going to set me aside from making this a real success. or in a year's time going back to an everything seller, which I don't want to do anymore.
Absolutely. And you have some good guys on your call, like Jamie, who has a ton of knowledge that you can bounce ideas off of and ask questions. So that's great.
I have the same question to ask everyone in the group. For me, when I started niching down, a couple of things happened. I actually get more home runs now than before, even though it seems like you would not, because you'd be maybe more narrow. But I will say that my sourcing time went way up. I'm sourcing way more now, even though you think you would be sourcing less if you're in one category. And I wanted to ask you, James, first, has your sourcing time changed?
Yeah, it has massively. Do you know, I think for me, the reason is I think as an everything seller, you're more likely to get, well, in my experience so far, I'm more likely to get a bulk deal as an everything seller. So where I've made a contact, and this was just before I made a decision to switch down to clothing. So I've got such a backlog now of the everything stock that I'm liquidating in the store, where you kind of go up to someone and they say, what are you interested in? My response was anything and everything. You name it, I'll take the lot. Where I think when you niche down into a certain category, you've got to find them people. So I think finding the contact is harder for a niche, but it's more rewarding and you're going to get better stuff overall. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for me as well, is actually finding them suppliers who are going to give me the clothing I want, because I can go down the car boot this weekend and speak to a house clearance person and say, I'm doing clothing now, give me all of your clothing, and they will do so. But how much of that work do I want for all of the clothing? So you need to be quite selective, even though you're niching down. So yeah, that's going to be a real shift where I can kind of go out, make one contact and maybe get 1,000 items of everything. I think it's going to be a lot harder in the UK to go and make that contact and get 1,000 items of clothing, good clothing worth listing.
I have a two-part follow-up for Paul. So Mel said that your store went from 10,000 items to 1,500 items moving to a different state. So your store shrunk. And then I also wanted to ask, did your sourcing change, like the amount of time that you're sourcing, even though your store is 10 times smaller?
Yeah. So, she was almost right. It was 9,000, but close enough. It went from 9,000 listings to, I moved to Florida with 1,500, and I think I'm like a little over 2,000 now. So I've been buying a lot of stuff. I've been listing a lot, but a lot of stuff is selling fast. So my store really isn't growing that much. And back in Philly, I would source from everywhere. I would source garage sales. I would go to auction houses. I would buy storage units. And a lot of the reason why my store was filled up was from storage units, because I felt the desire, okay, I bought this. I have to list every little item in here. I don't care if it's Old Navy jeans. I don't care if it's whatever. It will sell eventually. I have to list it because I bought it. So here I'm only doing garage sales. So, and because I do garage sales, I can cherry pick. Okay, no, that item doesn't sell fast enough. No, that item doesn't sell for that much. So I can cherry pick a lot more here and get, I'd say, better items to help me. And that's why my 90-day didn't really go down that much too. Like my 90-day maybe went down by, I would say, maybe 9% since when I was in Philly, even though my items is way less now. It's like just because I'm buying better stuff. Yeah.
Do you have to go to more stops to get better stuff? Because you have more time now since you're not listing as much.
I also have more. So Florida, we have garage sales here on Thursdays, on Fridays, on Saturdays, on Sundays. So I can kind of like, and because where I live, I'm close to Tampa, I'm close to Fort Myers, I'm close to Sarasota. I can kind of pick and choose. Like, say, okay, on Thursday, I'm going to go to this area. On Friday, I'm going to go to this area. On Saturday, I'm going to go to this area. Sunday, I'm going to go to this area. So as far as picking, sometimes I would have a really good day, a yard selling, and it'll be 9:30. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I was only out for an hour and a half, but I had enough stuff. I'm out. Other days I had to be out till 11, till 12 for me to say it was worth it going out somewhere. So I would say, like what you said, Chris, earlier, even though you would think it would take me less time, sometimes it takes more just because on whatever the days are, you know. And what I've learned also here is that community sales, which is like where everyone's like, oh, this is great, community sales, so many houses in one area. I try to avoid this as much as I can because every other reseller is going to community sales. So if you're not the first one there, you're picking up scraps from all these other people, and you're like, you know, as soon as you get to community sale, oh, someone's been through here, someone's picked this, and you just feel like you're wasting your time following somebody else. So I try to avoid those as much as I can and go to other places, other things that might be better for me, even though if it's just one stop instead of like 40 in one area.
I've never heard that before. That would be the same idea behind not going on dollar day.
Yeah.
Because
Pretty much, right?
everybody would be there that day. Maybe go the day before, or the community sale is great if you're the first one to hit all 40.
Yeah, definitely great if you're, and I've had some where I was the first one, and I was like, "Whoa, this is every house is hitting. It's incredible." But then you're like, "What time do I have to get there?" They say open at 9. I have to get there at 7 to be the first one. They have to get there at 7:30, whatever. It's a game that I don't like playing because there's a lot of competition where I live too. So I just try to. I go to the more obscure ones, the ones that maybe don't say what they have. Just say, "Hey, garage sale this time," blah blah blah. I try to avoid community sales. I try to avoid anything that says video games in the title. I do not show up to those because I know every reseller and their mom is going to be at the sales and they're going to be picking big. They might even I've heard here people even show up 2 days before. They said, "Oh, you have video games? I'll come on Wednesday. I'll buy them all out." So even if you get there early on the yard sale, they'll be already gone. So I try to avoid those as well.
And those sellers are more savvy too, because they know the video games bring all the boys to the yard. So they kind of have a better idea of what they have rather than, like you're saying, a sign that's crooked that just says garage sale.
Yeah. Those sellers will have eBay stickers or eBay prices printed out and put, "Hey, this sells for 80 on eBay. I want 75.
Yeah. Unsold listing. This is what I want. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So for Chris, you said that your sourcing time has expanded. What about your prep and processing time?
That's gone way down. So since the the items are getting closer to they're the closest to the final mode as possible. So less cleaning, less testing, all of those things have gone down. But the sourcing, it's basically 80% sourcing. Just looking for the best possible opportunity to go in on. And I am buying larger lots right now. So I have to be careful because it comes with everything. So I have to find different ways to move inventory that's a little bit more stale. I think that everyone listening right now has purchased a bulk deal that includes items you don't want. So I used to be like that too, have to list every single item. And now I'm thinking, maybe you sell those and let somebody else make the profit on it, and you just get it out of your house. And it's a weird pill to swallow, to buy something for 10 and sell it for 1. But then maybe your whole cost of goods goes up to like 12 or 13 and you're only listing the good stuff. It's just a different way of looking at it. And for somebody out there, their wheelhouse might be a specific item. So Eduardo from the group visited me from Panama, and he went to my flea market and he got 2 tubs of toys, 1 G.I. Joe, 1 Star Wars for the most part. And I sent it to Tech for the legit check, and he said that they were good buys. And Eduardo averaged 35 cents per piece. 35 cents per figure, but it was 70 pounds of figures. That's a lot. There's no way you could list every piece. I don't know how you would do that. There was I feel like minimum 800 pieces I shipped through freight forwarding, which also was very easy. I was a little scared that would be difficult, but it was not difficult to send it through freight forwarding. So I just looked through that, and it was actually overwhelming to me because we're talking 800 unique items, but all the same size, all very small. That was a very interesting thing. And I wouldn't even know how to sort those. I guess you would just put them onto a table and try to sort them by like and then start listing. That's a complicated puzzle for me. I'd be scared.
And that's something.
Yeah. If I could pick it back up that's kind of what I do to change too. In Philly, I used to would do those big buys and list every single one individually. Now, like if I buy a lot of Skylanders, I just list it as a lot and just one big lot. I don't care. Like as long as the profit is there, I'm not going to go through every single little Skylander and list it because I don't have that time and I don't want to be selling $4, $5 Skylanders. I'd rather get a little less for them, but just do one big lot. And that also helped my ASP a lot too, because now I'm selling lots instead of $4 items. So it's a big change.
Yeah, and that's something that I talked with Mel a bit about when we chatted, where she gets large lots of books and some of them are in categories that she doesn't know about. And she has the feeling that like 80% of these are not good. So I challenged her to, try to find a buyer for those items, try to find a buyer for the penny books. There are businesses that thrive on penny books. That's just not our business. So Mel, when we had that conversation, have you had time to kind of put a plan into motion on how you're going to sort that stuff, like Chris was saying, where we buy these lots, not everything is desirable, and we keep the ones that are for us, and maybe we can pass them along to someone else where that is their business, hopefully at a break-even price, at the best, make a small profit on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here like thinking about the thousands of books that I've got to go home to, that I know like 80% of them are probably rubbish. And like, it's not just like a couple of hundred, it's thousands. And, a lot of these books don't have barcodes that, they all need manually typing in when they're on subjects that I'm not familiar with. And it's daunting. And I think you used the word for me, Tech, like you have to be punished now.
That's what I said.
You have to be punished because you did the wrong thing. So now you have to do your daily listing and you have to get your daily work done. And then like you might have 4 hours of work and now you have 4 hours of punishment on top. Yep. And it's made me, like, a couple of times I've sat here thinking, I almost feel like putting every single one of those books in a big Gaylord and sending it off to the auction house and not even looking through them and starting afresh from my death pile. So keep everything that I've got listed, and that's fine. But the actual death pile there, like, it almost feels like it still feels so overwhelming that I feel like just throwing it all in a Gaylord and sending it off to the auction house and just starting. It's hard because I'm internally torn because I know that there's going to be books in that lot that are worth a lot of money. And internally I'm pulled because I know that we spent a lot of time picking up that haul, because the full day's work to get the haul. But it's not just a full day's work now, it's hours and hours of punishment that I need to go home to. And like, I'm coming back from this trip revitalized, like motivated, like energized, like talking to all these different people and getting everybody's different views on different things. I'm coming home like Tom said, there's a fire lit in my belly and I want to come home and I want to act on that. So it's like, rather than me come home and for 2 months be like 4 hours of punishment every single day to get through this death pile, I could be done with that in a weekend, packed it all into the Gaylord, it's off, and I'm ready to start fresh and come out like all fires burning, if that's the right phrase, all guns burning or whatever. I'm ready to come out and just take things by storm. So yeah, there's a couple of little things that are weighing up in my head, but I think that's almost the most tempting for me at the moment.
And the reason why it's punishment is, before we got into that talk, we talked about what Mel's schedule, what she wanted it to be, and what her expectations of that schedule she wanted. And she wanted to list 20 items a day. And now that she has to sort through this death pile of books, that's going to take the equivalent of 20 listings a day in time. So in order for her to list 20 listings a day, because we all still have bills that need to be paid, and sorting items and resorting items and boxing them up doesn't exactly pay the bills. So her result of 20 listings every single day, that result has to be the same. And after we're done with that, now we still have to deal with all of this problem that we've accumulated to the tune of thousands of books. And that's the punishment portion, because we all want to do other kind of things. Like Mel, she wants to focus more on YouTube, maybe hang out with her friends and family. But now, instead of being done with her 20 a day and moving on to the next thing, the punishment is now, all right, I've done my actual work that I'm able to bill, my billable hours of work, listing 20 items. Now I have to work another 2, 3, 4 hours per day, non-billable hours, sorting and shifting and moving all of these things apart because of the mess that I've gotten into. But I think, like you said, throwing them all into a Gaylord, sending them to the auction, washing your hands of them and not repeating this, that might be the best bet for you, and just move forward.
James, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, going back quickly, and then I'll talk about punishment, because I think that the tech talk is probably aimed at me as well, and I felt that with the punishment thing, and I'll go into reasons why. But it's interesting earlier with regards to when Paul was saying about, with the Skylanders, he would put them into a bulk and sell them all as one, where Eduardo, being an expert in what he does, he's picked up them figures and he probably knows already, do you know what, in this box here, yes, there's lots for me to work through, but I know exactly how to list these, exactly how to do the photographs, exactly how to ship these, do the item description, etc., etc. So for him, that task might take him 5% of what is going to take the likes of myself, Paul, or anyone else who's an everything seller to kind of go through, because he knows he's done it a million times before. And he's, in a way, when he's gone and sourced them items, he already knows exactly how he's going to process them. Where I'm the same as Paul, what Paul said there. If I picked all of them figures, I'm lotting them all together, putting them on probably a 99p auction and hoping for the best. There'll be no item specifics filled in. The description will just say big bundle of figures or Star Wars figures, wherever it may be. And you're not going to attract the best buyer. So, I think for me, that's been another eye-opener to niching down how you can become the absolute expert in what you sell. But on the punishment side, I've got exactly the same thing as Mel, where I've gone to this contact and I've kind of said to him, yeah, I'll take everything, fill up 20 IKEA bags and 15 boxes every time I see him. All goes in the garage. And now even this weekend, I went to a car boot sale and sold. And my punishment was I ended up giving away probably about 250 items for free because I don't want to deal with them anymore. I want them to be gone out of the way. And I've invested the money into all of these items now, which effectively has gone away for free. And you can kind of say, well, I've made good money on the other things I've sold, but your cost of goods and my cost of goods have suddenly gone up from being 40 pence an item to £4, £5, £6, £7 an item. And so where you do take everything, you kind of have to take that into account as well. So, I felt the punishment thing, Mel, because I think I'm being punished now for being so squirrel brain thinking I need to take everything. So, I think the best thing you can do is burn them books and move on.
So something that Paul said, and it did get kind of glossed over, but James brought it back. And it's something that I also did in the beginning of my reselling career back in the dinosaur days was, I dabbled into the everything seller. And there were times where I bought lots of GI Joes or like lots of Battle Beasts. And I remember one deal in specific where I bought 100 Battle Beasts for $1 each. So it was $100. And I put them all to auction. I laid them all out on the carpet. I took a big photo and then I took kind of quadrant photos and I put them to auction. I ended up selling for like $600 or $700. Sure. Could I have identified every single one of them and built 100 listings and, became a bona fide Battle Beast expert and maybe got a couple more dollars? Sure. Would it have taken probably 4.5 years for the entire 100 lot of Battle Beasts to sell? And the last couple of them are selling for 99 cents because I'm tired of looking at them? Sure. So like what Paul said is he sees a deal, he pays X as a lot, it will sell for X, and that's the deal. And I did the same thing when I bought lots, whether it be video games, whether it be toys, or even if I'm going to buy a piece of clothing that has a flaw, if it's a $200 jacket with a small hole, now it's an $80 jacket. So the deal is 5 into 80 rather than 5 into let me spend time repairing this, let me spend time fixing this, let me turn this project. So now that even though it's worth 200 mint, it's not worth 200 after you repaired it and it has a repair, signs of repair. Now it's worth 150 or 140. So the deal is 5 into 80. We don't always have to squeeze every single drop of these deals out for all of the profit. You spend the money, you sell the item, and you go out and buy more items.
Yeah. If I can piggyback off that also with the lot, it's one transaction, right? You do one sale, you pack one thing, you have to maybe do one return. If you have 100, that's 100 things you got to pack, 100 things you got to ship, maybe 100 possible returns. So that's also a big part of it. And then another thing about this is I don't have time for projects anymore. Back in Philly, I would buy things, maybe try to fix them up, maybe try to clean them and try to get the most out of it. Like I bought a NASCAR jacket for $10 2 weeks ago. It was dirty. I listed it dirty. It sold for 80. My deal was 10 into 80. Somebody else could have bought it, fixed it, sold it for 200 if they wanted to. I had no time to do that. I was like, I was happy with the 10 to 80 sell in 2 weeks. Get out of here. So it's again, so that definitely resonated with me as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So Tech, with you mentioned about projects and how it's not worth it for you, that's always an interesting one for me, especially more so now with clothing. If I pick something up and I haven't seen the zip has broke, and I kind of get into two minds now. Is it worth me fixing the zip? Is it ever worth your time personally fixing things, or is it a case of I'll sell it as is and let someone else make all of the money on it, I'll make a bit of money.
So it's always worth it to fix it. It's always worth my time to fix it. However, I'm not in that business. I'm not in the business of repairing zippers. I'm in the business of finding items and selling items. I'm not a seamstress. I'm not a professional in making alterations. My business is finding an item, processing the item, and selling the item. It's always worth it to fix it, but that's not my business.
Yeah. So if it's got a flaw, you're happy to sell it as is and get it gone.
Yeah, 5 into 80 with the flaw, no problem. Let somebody else repair, because there are people on eBay that are professional. If you sell a crumbled up hat, there are people that will buy it, they will restore it, they will reshape it, and they will sell it for more money. That's their business model. My business model is finding something underpriced, processing it, and shipping it out to the customer for a profit. My business is not restoration, repair, project. That's not my business model. If that's your business model, fine. But that is not my business model. I'll sell something broken in a heartbeat. No problem. As long as the profit is there. I used to buy broken iPods, broken phones, broken video games. No problem. If it's 5 into 30 broken, that's my business model. It doesn't need to be 5 into fix into 60. 5 into 30, that fits my model. That's all I'm looking for.
I want to put in the perspective Eduardo's buy. So he bought 800 toys for about $250. And he said, don't tell tech, but I'm going to list these all for $10 plus shipping on average. So it's about 8,000. So yep. 250 plus $100 for me to ship it to him. He's in at 350 into 8,000 gross. And that's if everything sells. Some people are here thinking, wow, that sounds pretty good. But could you list 800 figurines? That requires a lot of expertise. And luckily, at least it's in 2 categories.
Could you list 800 figures before you go out and buy 800 more? That's the issue.
Well, I mean, are you going to run into that lot again? I think 100%. You run into another 2 100%. Bins of toys.
Yeah, that picture you showed me is at every flea market in America. And yes. That's the problem. You buy that every single time you see it, and then you turn around and you have 80,000 figures behind you, unprocessed, that you can't get onto eBay.
And that's what it looks like. It's in 2 storage containers. Mm-hmm. So I emptied out the 2 storage containers into the box that shipped to Eduardo. I walked over to the dumpster and I put the 2 storage bins right next to it because I thought somebody might want them. 5 minutes, like 2 people walked by. The second person picked up those bins to fill it up with other things that will be at a garage sale later.
It's like a circle of life.
It's a circle of life. Bins are worth money and they're everywhere. And a lot of times it goes from somebody else's garage back home to your garage.
Right. And the thing is like, we have to turn this stuff. We have to turn our inventory. We have to turn our money. We can't keep overbuying, listing one at a time if we have issues with consistency and getting our items up. It's almost better to list that whole thing as a lot, add up all the G.I. Joes, add up all the Star Wars, create little lots, run them for an auction. There's no way he's going to be underwater spending $250 on that amount of toys. And he can go right back to the flea market and do it again next week. Keep his money going, keep his profit going, not have any sunk costs and not getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, if you just split it in the G.I. Joe Star Wars 2 lots, took a picture, 12 pictures of each lot, guarantee you make your money back and you can go do it again next week.
Yeah, let someone else pay the per piece price, let them process it, and then let them list it and let them wait 4 or 5 years to sell all of them. That's
especially now that eBay has a video you can put too. So you can have a minute video where you actually go and actually give a detail of exactly what you have. People know exactly what's in the lot. So then no reason not to do it.
Yep. And if there's a great one in there that you're scared that's not going to get sold, trust me, the collectors will find it and you'll get paid for it.
So I want to talk about Mel's example. Then we'll go back to Mel of putting it all in a Gaylord and somebody picking it up. That actually is someone's business.
Yep.
In my cardboard recycler, I cannot even believe this is true. The price per Gaylord of cardboard is $4. Okay. It's worth it to the guy who picked it up.
Yep.
That's his business. So I drove over there because I sometimes I do the recycling myself because I don't want to wait for him. And I saw that guy and he has this string system. He can pull one string and his whole flatbed falls off the truck. It's unbelievable. I didn't know you could do that. I thought I take every piece out of my car one at a time. He pulls one string and the whole thing flies into the
Amateur. We do that on the lawn crew with a chain. You put the chain in there and then you wrap it around and lock it. You could pull the whole truck out one time.
That's what I mean. I didn't know that. Because I'm like, how are you making money? $4 a Gaylord. How does that add up to gas? But it's like hundreds of Gaylords a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you stack. You've seen them driving down the road, 20 feet high trucks full of cardboard, and they've got the chain system figured out. And he did look like a little bit. I mean, he was running kind of a weak rig, but I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could pull the whole thing off the trailer in one move. So that is someone's business.
Yep.
So go ahead, Mel.
My uncle makes a living scrapping.
Yeah.
I'm like, how to make a living scrapping, making 8 cents a pound. But he figured out different techniques and they use different dollies to get stuff on and off his cars. He doesn't have to pick up fridges and all these things. And that's what he does. He scraps and he makes a living of. It's crazy.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mel.
I was going to say, like, I think one thing that struck out with me with what Tech said to me is when you're talking about, just because you're a bookseller doesn't mean you have to sell every single book. You sell the books that hit your metrics. And I think for me, I haven't had a clear enough defined business. And this is what Tech was saying to me. You need to go and have a business plan and a defined business, and you need to work out your metric, right? So I think for me, I'm in this, like, I'm a bookseller and I go out and I hunt for books. And, oh, yeah, there's a book. Like, it's like the shiny thing. It's still like I'm in my niche, but I'm still looking for books. And I think for me, I haven't had that clear enough metric so that it's easy enough for me to say, no, that is not for me. That is for somebody else's business. And I think after the talk with Tech, it's made me realize how important that is and how I need to really sit down and work out what is my business? What am I going to allow to be brought into my space? Because that is the energy coming into my space. And at the moment, the energy that's coming in is that I'm overwhelmed, I'm consumed, I've got stuff everywhere, I don't have a bench space to even put my picked items once I'm ready to ship them. Everything's falling, like I walk past and things fall on the ground. And it's bringing the energy down in my warehouse, it's bringing it in me, it's overwhelming me, it makes me feel like I'm not doing a good enough job at eBay. Then I want to do more YouTube, I don't have the time for it because I'm sorting all this stuff. And I really think that there's probably a lot of resellers that don't have a defined enough business model and they don't know their metrics. And like, I'm open and honest enough to put my hand up and say that was me. I don't have a clear enough definition of what my metrics are and what's good enough to bring into my store. Like, yeah, it's been a big eye opener for me.
And establishing that metric is going to be the difference between your success or non-success, because you are an excellent book buyer. However, that's not good enough, because anyone can buy any book. James can buy any piece of clothing. We have to buy quality clothing that's going to sell for the profit that we're looking for.
In the time frame that you're looking for. I think the defining what, today's podcast is about finding what works, moving to what works. You have to decide for yourself what works, and what doesn't work is messing it up. All these things that don't work, you're spending your whole day listing items that don't even move the needle.
Right.
You're just afraid of losing that sunk cost, or you made a mistake when you bought it and you still want to list it anyway, or it came for free with the lot.
Yep.
Those might be the biggest mistake. You got it for free and you still don't want to let it go.
I think there's a level of fear that comes into it. There's that level of fear, like, especially when you're, really relying on this money, like you don't have that big bank of money yet. So you're like, I've got to list more and more and more to make this more money. But all it's doing is actually hindering you, because, it's that old less is more, like by niching down and focusing and researching more on all these items. Like, Tech was like, if everybody just researched more and you could become an expert in 90 days. And then you've got less work. I feel like you just get into this huge grind because it's almost like fear. I need more money. I need more money. I've got to list more. I've got to list more, rather than work smarter, not harder. So, but it's really hard to get out of that mentality when you're kind of living that life, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a cycle because, like you said, we don't have the big bank account. We're depending on the money, so we have to list more, but we're not listing items that are going to sell in time for us to get the money back, so that we can build our bank account and make sure all the bills are paid. So, like, we can list whatever we want, we can source whatever we want, but if it's not going to sell through quick and it's just going to sit on eBay, that's just more and more money sunk cost inside of your inventory.
One of my realizations on that point came from the other month. I sold 15. I list 20 a day at the moment. I sold 15 items in a day, and I made, well, profit wise, I don't know how much I made, but it was about £120 worth of sales in the 15 items. And that for me was a real eye opener, because all of them 15 items on the everything side now, I've got to go ahead and pack up and find boxes, bubble wrap, and all the rest of it. And all of that extra time is taking me now to ship them 15 orders the following day. And then when I think to myself, if I'm smarter when I'm making them buying decisions and not listing everything I've got for the sake of it, that's 1 or 2 items to some people. And there's me having spent hours to ship 15 items, print all the labels. And another realization for me is, I think after a weekend, I had about 34 orders to ship. And I remember speaking in the UK call to the guys and say, someone help me out. It took me 4 hours to ship all of them items. And other people are saying I've done double that and it took me 40 minutes. And all of these realizations really kick in, because you kind of look at it and say, it's not just the start of the process, it's the back end of the process. So think about your packing time, think about the time it takes to ship, think about the customer service. And I know tech, you've mentioned this many a times, but when selling electrical items, you become the customer service support for the next 6 months for that customer.
Forever, yeah. Unlimited.
It's not working. How do you power this on? My remote's not working. It's endless. And so with clothing, hopefully you're not going to get a message saying, how do you put this t-shirt on?
Well, it makes me think, even though Paul said he's an everything seller, he mentioned a couple of times he likes things that are small. So like, even though a pair of binoculars and a camera and a baseball are different, they still ship the same. So that's like something interesting as far as size goes. There's not really a true everything seller, meaning like you're going from, kiddie pool to tennis racket to football helmet. Like, not every single item is going to be completely different in size, shape, dimension, category. There's going to be some similarities. Otherwise, you'd have to look at every single item at the garage sale. And I'm sure, Paul, are you going to certain sections? You don't look through every item at the garage sale, do you?
And I would be there forever if I was looking at every single item. So no, like I hit up like, oh, look, there's a shoe section. Let me see what's in the shoes. Oh, there's a video game section. Let me go see in that. To back up what James said about the shipping time, like back in my old warehouse, I would have weekends where I sold 100 items and it would take me all day to pack and whatever. That would be fine. I was in my warehouse. Here I'm doing from my garage and Mel was in there. It's hot as hell. And so I don't want to be there for 8 hours packing, so like now the stuff that like I am buying, also I want it to be easy to pack, and I even sometimes time myself and what can I do to make it faster. One of the things I changed was in Philadelphia, I would use recycled boxes and try to manure them and frankenbox them and do whatever. Here I'm buying boxes. If I'm picking up a lot of VCRs, I'm buying an 18 by 12 by 6 box. I'm having them on stock so that whenever I sell VCR, I put in the box, bubble wrap, it's good to go. I'm not wasting time looking for the right box for the right shape or whatever, because I don't want to be in that garage for more than an hour and a half max. So it definitely change. Everything changes based on where you are, for sure. It's a big difference.
And if you sell computer monitors, you can still pack it in 30 seconds. You have everything because you're set up for that. There's people somebody sent me packing up a tube monitor in less than 1 minute. They just had the exact size box, the exact size dunnage. It was amazing. It would take a normal person a week to ship that. You have to find the box and then you have to watch 8 YouTube videos on how to pack it safely.
Yeah, I think I could pack like a VCR or DVD versus combo in maybe 2 minutes. Other people, it might take them. I've seen people on YouTube take 20 to 30 minutes, an hour sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I don't want to waste money on a box. But I'm like, you wasted an hour packing. Like, well, what is your hour worth to the box that costs 42 cents for you to buy? You know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest expense in your business is wasted time. People just don't realize it because you don't see the money leaving your pocket. You just lose the opportunity to make more. It's hard because you can't see it. You can't see the lost revenue.
It would be a great line item on your next spreadsheet that you build on the morning call.
How much wasted time? I've never actually put it as, you said it would be the biggest line, but I don't know where to put it. How much time do you actually waste per day?
Yeah, that would be the biggest line, the biggest entry of time wasted. Yep, absolutely.
This is the part that blew my mind. I had 2 kids recently, but somehow I get more done. How did that happen? Like, it takes so much extra time. That's how much time I was wasting.
Right.
So I couldn't believe how much time I was wasting.
Well,
You
what
just
kind
don't
of
know.
stuff did you used to do that now you no longer do? Now you just focus on work, kids, and go to sleep.
Today, one of my workers was like, do you have 15 minutes? I'm like, 2 minutes. What is it? And she's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't even 2 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, 15 here. I'm going to go figure out if this is worth changing the zipper. That's like at least an hour gone. And here we were talking about this morning, if you can list 2 items an hour, like you can process 1 item an hour and you find 1 item an hour and it's $20, that's $10 an hour. What about all the hours you don't work being subtracted from your hourly rate? That's the part that hurts. Like, maybe you made $30 an hour on the item that you sold, but then you wasted 4 hours and now you're down to $7.50 an hour.
So is it better for a daily wage? Maybe that would make people think differently. Because when I'm rocking and rolling and I'm working, I'm $20 an hour. But what if you're only rocking for 2 hours a day and the rest of the day, the waste of time?
Yeah, maybe that day rate is good. It's really interesting thinking about how much time goes into researching what doesn't work for you. So maybe we can ask everyone in the group around the horn what they can do to focus on more of what works for them. James, what can you do to figure out what works for you best?
So I've set myself a little personal challenge for August. I've kind of looked at the stuff I'm buying at the car boot sales and at the charity shops when it comes to clothing. And recently, this whole thing about the profit and not loading in lower valued items has really hit home hard with me. So the only way I'm going to gain an edge for myself, and Tex mentioned before, it would be great if you guys can just plug something into me and I can learn 30, 40, 50 brands overnight. That's going to be fantastic. But at the moment, we're not there. But I've got to now dedicate my time to work actually smart for the business, not inside the business. So every day in August, I have dedicated to learn 3 new brands or 3 like collabs with different brands. For instance, I was doing lots of searching today on Fruit of the Loom tags because I always see them at the car boot. And a lot of people say Fruit of the Loom probably not worth picking up, but some of the older Fruit of the Loom tags are worth picking up. So I've been doing a lot of research into that as well. So I'm dedicating a lot more time to focus on the business compared to being inside of the business in August. And I've kind of said, the whole time thing's really interesting because I put the other day to you, Chris, I thought I was working about 60 to 70 hours a week on eBay. And then when I actually started doing time audits, I realized the actual time I was working was nearer 15 to 20 hours. And it was really shocking to see because you kind of think you're constantly working, but you forget the breaks on Instagram, scrolling and talking and whatever else you're doing. So I'm really dedicating myself to trying to have my eBay day done by the time your call starts, which is our 2:00 in the afternoon. And then the rest of the afternoon is dedicated to learning brands and focusing again on YouTube.
Paul, what can you do how do you figure out what works for you the best?
So I'm probably a lot different than everybody else because I have ADHD and I have a hard time focusing on a task for more than 30 to 40 minutes most times. So I can't really just sit there and list 20, 25 items straight. I can't do it. So what I've been realizing a lot with how my day was going is I'm doing tasks, I'm editing a video, I'm doing this, I'm going here, I'm doing this. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh crap, I didn't list anything. And now I'm going to be miserable from 8 p.m. trying to focus and do this. So I've been looking for pockets of space where I can fit 5 listings in and do something else. So for example, when I'm editing a video, I'm attaching my GoPro and the videos from my GoPro going to iMovie. That thing takes 10 or 15 minutes. In the past, when that was happening, I was scrolling on YouTube, I was on Instagram, I was doing something else. Here, I'm like, oh, I got 10 to 15 minutes. Let me bang out a couple listings. Let me do something that's happened. Well, when I'm waiting for my food to get or something, that takes 20, 30 minutes. I would also just be scrolling on Instagram, doing something that wasn't productive. I'm like, oh, I have 20 minutes. Let me bang this out. And then I realized in these 5 to 10 like listing spurts, it would be like 5 listings here, 10 listings here. At the end of the day, I got 30, 35 listings up. And it didn't feel like I didn't do anything extra at all to my day, but the listings were done. Now that works for me because I have ADHD. I don't think it will work for a lot of people if they don't have it. Because a lot of people, they want to start a task and they want to finish it. They don't want to say, oh, I'm going to do 5 from 9:30 to 9 to 10. Then I'm going to do 5 from 11 to 11:20. I'm going to do 5 from 12. With my crazy brain, it works. I don't know. It's going to work for everybody else too. Yeah.
I mean, but the attitude of immediately getting to work works for everyone. If you're like, I have 15 minutes to do some work, and I noticed you said that you do a couple listings. Does that mean all the way through, or are you taking photos all at once and then listing?
So I still do batch. So I draft first, then I photo, and then I do it later. But I don't finish it until it's fully up. So it'll be 5 listings all the way done, fully through. But then it'd also be like, I would go through my dev pile and find 5 similar things. I would grab 5 action figures, or I'll grab 5 shoes or whatever. So I would be in the same like muscle mentality when I'm doing it. I won't grab like a shoe, then like a hat, then like a video game, because my brain would go crazy if I did that. But if it's 5 things and it's muscle memory, I can knock that out in 15 to 20 minutes.
Thanks, Paul. Mel, what can we do to figure out what works for us most?
I think for me, like it's coming down. I have to get a schedule for me to be able to get everything done. I have to work out how many things I can do in the period of time that I've got for that. My plan is when I get back, maybe even on the plane trip when I'm coming home, I need to do like a big brain dump. I think get everything out onto paper, really get myself clear, work out those metrics that Tech was talking about that are going to suit my, not only like the metrics for like what I'm buying, but it's like the metrics for my whole business. How do I fit in YouTube? Where does my YouTube time come from? Where does my eBay time come from? Where does the travel time come from my warehouse? Do you know what I mean? Like I've got 2 hours of travel every single day to get to my warehouse. I want to do YouTube. Like I've kind of got like 3 hours for eBay, 3 hours for YouTube, a couple of hours for, travel. That's like my 8-hour day. Then go home, cook my dinner for the family. Like obviously I can work longer than 8 hours doing some work at home later in the night, but I've got to try and, for the most part, get all my stuff done within my time metrics. So for me, it's like I've got a lot of homework to do when I come back from this trip, and the homework is not only working out my business metrics on what I'm going to buy going forward for my store and what I'm going to allow into my store and what energy I'm going to bring back and what books, but also like my timing schedule and how to make it work. And I am a little bit squirreled as well, and I do think I'm probably undiagnosed ADHD. I do struggle a lot with that kind of stuff, like Paul was saying as well. I have to be really in the zone to do like I can do long listing, but I have to be ready and have that time period to sit there, and a lot of the time I don't do that. So I need to be able to work it into my schedule, what's going to work for me.
Tech, you have this unique ability to decide what works before you start, or at least earlier in the process. Like as we developed this podcast, you said, let's do it once a week forever. And we've just done it that way.
Yeah.
I think that's For me, the biggest thing is that you don't have to change. For some reason, I feel like improvement requires changing. But like instead of being daily refinement, I could just be daily, do it the same as yesterday, and it would be a lot easier. Because why does it need to be different? It is weird doing the same thing every day, and every day it gets easier. Instead of every day it's different, and you're a beginner every day.
Yep. And just like I took James's new URL, I just took that one from you too. Daily, just do it like I did yesterday.
And that's one thing I really like when you see Tech's warehouse. It's just the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly how he says it is. It is. There's nothing out of place. There's no death piles anywhere. There's no stuff flying around. Like it's simply just that you've got your warehouse with your list of clothes. That is it. There's nothing lying around. There's no distractions. Where I think a lot of us are full of distractions as well. And Tech's whole life follows the same direction of his business, like the house, everything is just very minimal and less distractions, which means it's very easy to do the same old that you were doing the day before because there's so many less distractions.
So you're saying Tech cleaned up really well before you came, so is what I was wondering.
That would be a monumental task if so. But even the whole trip with Mel, like everything was like methodically planned out. So like, how many times, Mel, did I say, okay, what's next? What's next? Like there was constantly like, and even like the times where we went back to the hotel between Disney parks, that was scheduled because what happened every time we went back to the hotel, Mel? Do you remember?
It rained.
It rained. I knew what time it was going to rain.
Yeah.
So that's when we left the park. We went home, we took a shower, and we went back to the park right after it rained. So everything was totally planned out so that we can maximize every single second that we had Mel here. And there was never a dull moment. We had Mel up early in the morning and we were running from early in the morning all the way to the nighttime. So everything could be planned out and everything could be perfect.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, even prior to me coming, like maybe the last 2 months or something, like Tech so many times. Do you know the plan, Mel? Do you know where are you going first? Where are you going now? What time are you leaving? And I'm like that airy fairy, like, oh yeah, I'm still working it out. And Tech's like constantly like, because he needed to know the schedule because that's how he works. He works to such a strict schedule that he needed to be able to work it through in his head exactly what was going to do prior to it happening. Whereas I'm the time of, well, I'll just go with the flow like an airy fairy. And it's just two totally different mindsets. But I can see I can see why Tech has so much success because of the simplified ways and the schedule and the structure and the regimen that he does.
I also got a sneak preview of his shop, and I couldn't believe how much time I'm wasting. There was just essentially everyone at his shop gets done so much earlier than anybody else because there's nothing to distract you. You would go there. And I think that what Paul said really affected me because I feel like maybe your environment causes the ADHD. Maybe if you go somewhere and it's just what to do and there's nothing else, you just do that and go home. But if you go there and you can switch, you switch.
What's our confined environment? I just got plush animals anywhere. There's nothing wrong with that. No, but I think that's a good part of it. I remember when I was in my warehouse, I had a much easier time focusing on work because I was just surrounded by concrete and there was no windows, there was nothing like that. I was like, okay, I'm working from here. Here, I'm like, oh, look at that, it's sunny outside. Let me go see what's going on. I'm like, oh, let's see this. So I think that's probably a big part of it too. You're probably right.
Yeah, and not only does Paul have squishmallows all over the couch, I don't even have a couch. Matt was like, isn't it time you get a lounger? And I'm like, nope, not even close.
No, it's shockingly clean.
So yeah, we don't even think about sitting down. We don't even think about doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And it took me, I saw the video a couple of months ago and I've been ruthlessly removing things and it still doesn't look like that. That's like a real dedication to not adding things that are unnecessary. All right, so we want to be respectful of everybody's time. We appreciate you guys stopping by. We are going to do a Q&A after this call. You guys are welcome to stay as our host. But before we leave, we want to make sure people can find you again. So let's start with Paul. Paul, where can people find you on social media?
I'm just Philly Flipper like that. So I know somebody said I spelled it wrong, but no, that's how I spell it. Philly Flipper, YouTube, Philly Flipper, Instagram. Those are my main two. So if you search that one, you probably will find my other channels as well. But the Philly Flipper is the one I'm mainly focusing on. Yeah.
Thank you. Mel, where can people find you?
You can find me at Back From Burnout on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. Not that I'm very active on Threads, but you can find me on all the socials, Back From Burnout.
And James?
Yeah, you can find me Bold Finds on YouTube and also Bold Finds on Instagram.
I'll make sure to put all the links in the description for everybody. Please follow everyone. Appreciate everybody in YouTube land. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening to the Resellers podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, please check us out at patreon.com/the Resellers podcast for all information, all our full-length episodes, over thousands of hours of coaching, and our Facebook mentorship group, which is $35 per month, just about $1 a day to help you get to the next level. We appreciate you guys. See you next time.